Here we are already. The third series, Rick,
Mate.
in the MCU Disney timeline. Finally
How
here.
exciting was it? Fair, love it.
Look, out of all the shows that were coming up on the slate for the MCU, Loki is one that I was interested in because I didn't know where it was going to go. So, so I was pretty pumped to see this. And you know what? Let's just put it out there straight away. What our feelings were, and then we'll dig into the show a bit. I really love the weirdness of this show. I really enjoyed how quirky it is. There's, and I'll get into more what my thoughts are about the overall themes on this show based on what I've seen so far. But I love the absurdity of it. I love, man, how good is Tom Hiddleston in this episode? Probably he's doing his best version of Loki that I've ever seen. But, I'm getting ahead of myself. I loved it, Rick. It was 2 thumbs up for me. What about you?
Mate, I'm on the same page as you, Jace. Literally the first 5 minutes, this show just got me. And I absolutely loved it. Loved everything about it. Even some of the little kind of dark bits towards the end, which we'll talk about, which I was like, wow, that was so good. But just the way that it's written and the tone that you can see and the direction that it's going to go in, it is a winner for me.
It is, and there's lots of great stuff to talk about with it. I think one of them really is the look of this. I just love the production designer. I love the 70s kind of pseudo-futuristic look that they've got in the TVA.
The TVA office.
Loved it. I thought it absolutely looked great. I really, really liked our man Mobius.
Yep. Oh, Wilson.
I can't. Shocked at how good he was.
He's so good. I know, isn't it?
So good. Oh. So there's so much to love about it. And I think the probably best way to love it is to do what we traditionally do in this show, Rick. And I think we'll kind of go through scene by scene and we'll kind of break down, and give an overall perspective on what we thought the episode was. And I really love setting the audience back where they need to be with the opening of this by starting it off with that scene from, not Endgame. Avengers, but Endgame as well. Yeah. And it was great. So we're back at 2012 and we're seeing the defeat of him. And we're seeing that moment where he actually picks up that Tesseract and he's gone. And I think the credits roll at that point, don't they? We get the Marvel fanfares. We normally
goes black. And then you go
black, and then we end up in Mongolia of all places.
Mongolia. Yeah.
So, but it doesn't say whether that was the future or not. I just think he kind of got shot there.
No, didn't it bring up a time? Didn't it bring up a time? Didn't it bring up the date?
No, not for that. I'm pretty damn sure it was just it said the location. So, 100%. So, I love that. I love the fact that his first line is a reference to the Avengers. He burdened with glorious purpose, and he can't understand him.
Who are you? Why are you at home?
And that's an interesting point I want to make early on is throughout this use, we're seeing the Loki from Avengers. So we're not seeing the Loki, and as we go along in the plot, that explains it. Yeah. But certainly from the character, he's the really evil Loki. He's the madman of that. Because remember the Avengers, he was the villain, and he was a good villain. And he was someone who was intimidating. So we're getting that version of Loki, which always kind of, for me, it's just kind of, like it's not the same. Like if it was the Loki from the end of Thor Ragnarok, he's kind of a good guy by that point, isn't he?
But he's not. Yeah.
But he's not in this. So, no, I love that little scene with in Mongolia. Obviously, it moves straight into seeing these soldiers come from those doorways.
He gets captured.
And it's, we're talking minutes. We're talking 3 minutes into this show, and we're already being introduced to these soldiers. Very stormtrooper, like Nazi stormtrooper looking, I thought.
Very different. At least you know where
fascist looking. Right. But straight away. And man, I dig it. Like you said that you were locked in after a couple of minutes, and this scene especially, because, and I'll tell you why. I knew it was going to be weird because when that chick smacks him, and it goes into slow motion, and you're seeing these chicks wobbling 16th. from being here, and he's going 16th at a time, but he's the train wheels. And I'm like, okay, this is odd. This is different.
So good.
And absolutely phenomenal. But they grab the Tesseract and boom. Mate, before we know it, we're in this office setting. And again, the look and design, all the oranges and kind of references to that 70 kind of mustard.
Kind of like a madman kind of feel to it, the office, and it just...
It was got a bit of an asylum feel to it as well, I think, which is like really great. And what we get introduced to, and in this scene, which I think is wonderful, and it goes on for a bit, is he's going through their version of the administration process.
Yeah, the process.
Having to go to every certain department. Which are hilarious, and at this point in the show, it is rather funny. It is, it is kind of quirky and a lot of fun. So, I mean, the first one of that, Rick, though, with the robot, he's thing and that robot just slices off all his. Well, what the hell?
It's leather, my Asgard leather.
My favorite one's the next one though, where he lands with the guy with the pile of paper saying, please sign off everything you've ever said. You said, what? And then he goes, please sign this. This is absurd. Please sign this. Really like that. And I like straight away that he is, what? It also kind of gives me this real kind of, there's a movie called Brazil. Do you know a movie called Brazil? No. Or 12 Monkeys? Terry Gilliam, the filmmaker. Yeah. It's got a very Terry Gilliam feel, this show as well, which I really appreciate. So, no, it's all great. The fact that when he goes through that metal detector, and he goes, what's going to happen? And
from a robot.
He's having that moment where he's philosophically going, what if I was a robot and I didn't know? And it's that kind of quirkiness. That's there. Him having to take a ticket, brilliant, love that.
And seeing that guy just get vapid. He's got a ticket. I haven't got a ticket.
Just evaporate him.
It just deleted.
Wonderful. And we're moving on to what is the Jurassic Park scene. And I'm calling it the Jurassic Park scene because we get introduced, because this is a whole scene to unpack, but we're getting introduced to the explanation of the multiverse, but it's done with the animated character, and I call it the Jurassic Park scene. If you remember that Mr. DNA, remember that whole scene showing and that's what they've done here. But they're explaining the multiverse in a very simplistic way, which is fantastic. But the explanation is worth thinking about here, because they say that time. Like, they have these 3 timekeepers whose job is to keep the timelines
just
of the
one timeline.
To keep it solid. So their job. So are they're obviously greater than celestials? They're greater than, are they the most powerful thing in existence? That's what they're saying. That these
that's what Loki said.
Because if they're control of the timeline, then they're control of
everything.
Of everything. And they do go on and explain this later on as well in a scene which we'll get to. But I did find it fascinating that they really went for that whole, here we go, here's the multiverse timeline, here's what happens if someone does the wrong thing. But it's also, to me, gave me that, wow, the MCU universe is quite a fatalist universe. Because what it's saying, Rick, is if no matter what you do, you've got to get back into the timeline. That's the whole concept, right? Timeline is linear. If you go off, no, we've got to fax it, keep it with the
and then fix that timeline.
Revert
it back to normal.
The concept of free will is challenged with that, because that's basically saying the entire universe, there's a destiny. You can't actually change that destiny. What will be, as long as those timekeepers are okay with it. So I thought it was a very interesting way to go basically say, well, look, the universe is what the universe is. And if the timekeepers don't like the direction you're going, they consider that a variant and they're going to change that. So hence, free will in the MCU is kind of not there. And I love that they've gone down that kind of really deep philosophical way with it. But I thought it was really interesting. But a great way to but a great way to show the explanation of that multiverse was that very 1960s looking animation. It was wonderful.
But it was easy to follow, and you know exactly where you stand on the show straight away. You know where we're going.
And a show like this, Rick, you're going to have to, aren't you?
You have. Oh yeah,
you have to keep your bearings. Yeah,
you got to go straight into it.
Yeah, I think you could get lost pretty quick. Absolutely. Did you know who did the voice of Mrs. Time or whatever her name was?
No.
Yeah, Tara Strong.
Was that?
Yeah, Tara Strong, extremely famous voiceover artist. So there you go. But it's good. It gives the main character a sense of what's going on and what the TVA is all about. And then basically after that's the intro, because basically it starts off. It seems to go straight into a cop procedural because it's 1549 and we've got Owen Wilson and the TVO overlooking some bodies in a church.
18 something or other it was.
No, 1549.
Was it
1549. Now, I mean, this is the first sense of now we're getting the sense of what this plot of the show is kind of about, because this is where we get to see the whatever's going on. Like, what's the evil part of the show? Who's the bad guy?
Yeah, who's the bad guy? Yeah.
But we don't get to see the bad guy here. We do get to see the result of him.
We get a description.
Yeah, stabbing. So pretty kind of heady stuff. And they meet this little girl there. She has blue teeth. You ask her why, and it's kind of some candy. It's
because he asked who did this, and she pointed to the devil. And then
okay. What did you think about that straight away? Did you think Mephisto? Because that's what I thought.
First thing that came in my head, but then I was thinking,
looks exactly like
it. But then it's the little girl thinking, this person, have they got horns?
Well, it's more metaphor. She was representing that evil was here. Evil was here, which I thought was kind of cool. But a nice little scene, and again, Owen Wilson starting the show, and he's got me right there, and I'm thinking like he's in full hog here. He's putting in a really good performance, so which is kind of great to see because we love Owen Wilson, and he gets some news that Loki is about to be tried in front of the judge.
Yeah, he's got the forms.
He's going to go in front of a judge, which is great. Great little scene. I love the back and forward with it, him trying to work his way out. I particularly love when he goes, I think
what is his powers?
He can't use his powers, which is driving him.
What's going on?
That's the other thing. Nothing. Everybody in this who's in that TVA is pretty well melancholy, he's just like, I don't give a shit. It's another boring day.
They just know.
You know what I mean? They're just not with it. So I love the real bureaucracy behind it. I think it's great. This is where Owen Wilson obviously gets a chance to grab Loki and have a chat to him.
He knows what he's capable and he's got a plan.
Well, he's kind of got a plan. He's not letting the audience know what that plan particularly is, But what's great, as they go, like Owen Wilson's got him and he's dragging him down the hallway, you get to see where they are. So they're in their own dimension, aren't they? That's how I perceive it. They're on their own dimensional plane with this mirrored, almost like over-the-top sci-fi kind of location. It's mind-blowing, the depth of this place where they're staying.
How good did it look? It's just when they did that shot.
Which indicates there's a culture there. There's, remember they make that little joke about, so you're this department. Are you the nightmare department?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
you're a nightmare. No, that's a different department. Yeah,
that's because Loki's going to go. Yeah, I'm going to burn this a whole thing to the ground. It's like,
right.
Start with my
But
office.
yeah, like those kind of references. I mean, they're kind of high-end conceptual references to go, no, in this, we control nightmares. Again, another theory of mine about that the MCU contains no free will. Because you've got things like that. There's a whole department just focused on your nightmares. That's pretty crazy. A throwaway line, but nevertheless. Yeah. Moving on along. We get to see them starting the dialogue and eventually get to that room, which is a really strange, almost clockwork orange looking set when you're in that meeting room, which I love. And this is where we get to see some of
a bit more about Loki. Yeah, we get to see.
So Owen Wilson started showing obviously those projections of what had happened in the beginning at the Avengers, at the end of the Avengers, and which he hates, obviously, Another thing I do love, I think they show it really in the beginning of the scene, is that gadget Owen Wilson has. So if Loki, any prisoner wants to attack, it's just it'll send him back 2 seconds, a second, and moves him in time and space. Very cool little kind of thing.
He said time works differently here.
You got to say, Rick, pausing along, and before we kind of get too much further, already, like, it's so different style-wise from the other two shows. You've got to hand to the MCU. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki, so very different in style and tone. I think it's absolutely amazing. So, yeah. All right. So we this scene is a big chunk of the episode, isn't it? Really, him and Loki, and it's a big chunk of the episode.
It's a breakdown of trying to get to the core of Loki.
We're starting in the beginning where Mobius really wants to know if Loki enjoys doing what he's doing. That's the question, isn't it? Do you get off killing people? Basically, is asking. Pretty heady question. So, you know what we'll do, by the way? I think we should probably do this now before we also get too much further. Rick, is have a look at Mobius. Who is Mobius? This character. Mobius, Emma Mobius, which is Mobius. Agent Mobius. And there's not a lot of information about him. So I don't know if he's been created for the show, which I think he has, because all it says here is Mobius is an agent of the Time Variance Authority. Well, I've never heard of the Time Variance Authority, ever. Maybe I'm not that deep into the comic books, but who specialized in investigations of particular dangerous time criminals like Loki. But I was having a look and seeing where his appearances were, and the only appearance I could see was here, that he's been in Loki. That's basically all I've seen. I don't know if he's supposed to be another character, or am I in the wrong place? I don't know, but I didn't find a lot about him. But I think he's been written specifically for the show. I do.
Well, if anyone knows, drop us.
Anyone knows? We want to know what it is, because I'm a bit struck at whether
I thought it might be part of, like, he has been in the comics, but I don't know.
Well, the name Mobius is very familiar, of course, but whether question on that one. Yeah. We need someone to save the day for that. Anyway, back to the episode. Really love the back and forward with Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston.
They got good chemistry. Like, you really good the first episode, but really good on how they're doing it. So and after I watched this show, I turned around to my son who was watching it with me, and I said, I think this whole episode, and I think this show, is a battle for Loki's soul. I think this whole thing is Loki coming to the realization of who he truly is, and then kind of fighting and trying to recover some sort of sense of identity, which, I think is an amazing way for them to go. If that's where this is what the overall thing and character arc for Loki is. I mean, bravo! That's a ballsy storytelling, and I think it's great. And it just gets deeper and deeper into it, doesn't it, Rick? I mean, it just starts to really.
because he
he's
starts
seeing
calling Loki on shit. Yeah.
Well, he's seeing things. Loki's seeing things that hasn't happened yet. We all know it's happened because
that's coming up. That's coming up.
Yeah, but even
before then, Rick, it's like Mobius starts saying to Loki, "Well, you don't enjoy this, but here you go. Look, here's you enjoying pulling somebody's eyeball out. Here's you enjoying everyone being, really calling him on his shit." And then, like you said, Rick, turning around and starts showing him just a little bit of the future with his mum.
How good was the scene in the plane?
Oh, yeah. That is its own scene. I was going to get to that, but time to bring.
I don't know if that's
we get a flashback. Well, we get a look at some of the things he'd done, and one of them was where he pretended. He was DB Cooper.
Yeah,
but he did it because he had a silly bet with Thor. And,
with Thor.
I thought that was going to be a whole episode, but it was just a throwaway little thing. Yeah. In the trailer, went, there must be a whole episode where he pretends to be DB Cooper or is DB Cooper, but no, it was just a quick throwaway scene. But he gets to start to see things. This is where the show takes a darker turn, I reckon.
This. Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, where we actually, he does try to make an escape attempt, and Clive successfully gets away for a little bit.
Does it well.
Does a little, Lord of Mischief. He can always get himself out of a situation. But invariably, without going through all that, he ends up back in that room by himself.
This is where it gets dark. This is where
it really gets dark because he starts to watch his future, doesn't he? Not just the scene that he was shown by Mobius, but what moves further. So he gets to see, unfortunately, he gets to see his mum die. She gets to see the act, and you can see shattered. It's shattered. Then he gets to see his father die. Yeah, because we go forward to Thor Ragnarok. And then the darkest thing, he gets to see himself.
That's
from Infinity War.
He sees him,
that performance of Tom Hiddleston.
Oh my God!
When he's witnessing that, mate, sold me so much because of the pure emotion and realization that was coming, that's coming from it, and it breaks him. I think at that point he's broken, especially that version of Loki that was Avengers. He's not that raw. Because of what's happened. And the thing is, which I kind of missed out, but is worth mentioning, when he does make this escape attempt, he ends up going to this administration office because he wants the Tesseract back.
And he sees all the Infinity
Stones. That guy, and he grabs the Tesseract, and he sees all these Infinity Stones, and he's like, people use them as paperweights there.
Yeah, we got hundreds of thousands.
All these different multiverses where they've had these Infinity Stones, which I loved. I thought was hilarious. But does it lessen the weight of what we've already seen by doing that?
No,
I don't think it does. I thought it was just a nice little kind of nod. But knowing that the power that he understood to be the most powerful thing in the universe is nothing.
It's useless. There's nothing.
So you put that on top of the fact, the realization where he's seen his whole life go down that pathway. It resets him in a way. And I know they mentioned the show reset him, but they've kind of done that. He's been able to tame the wild beasts as such. And so Loki is starting to become compliant, and working with Owen Wilson and trying to get to an understanding of what's really kind of going on. But throughout that, and we hadn't seen it quite a bit, it was still that alluring thing that they mentioned that there's something out there killing TVA soldiers. Yeah. And we finally get cut to a scene that's, set in 1858 in Oklahoma. Salina, Oklahoma. And we get this really creepy scene where they're through a field. TVA agents are trying to find this divergence. They come across this hooded figure who promptly sets them on fire. Rick.
Well, yeah, because they see there's oil. He goes, there's oil. Let's just write it up. Let's get out of here. And then they see that creepy figure, and then they get burned.
Really cool. Really cool little scene. But it's also backed upon the emotion that Mobius reveals to Loki that they want Loki to help them chase down this evil figure. But what the stinger is that Mobius says, I want you to stop you. Revealing to the audience that there is a version of Loki out there that's completely insane and killing. And so he's being recruited to battle himself. Whether himself is a future version of the current Loki that he's got to fight, or an alternate multiverse version of Loki, which is probably more likely.
Probably more multiverse, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah.
Right on that
it's crazy. What a crazy concept to go down.
If that is, then that's just...
That is completely off the wall nuts, which I absolutely loved. And it was, and that really was the stinger of the show. I mean, that is the show in a nutshell. So it was odd. It was wonderful. I love the pacing. I love the humor. I love the dark turns. I think everybody's on their A game. And you know what? If I'm an MCU fanboy, and of course I was going to like it, so be it, because you're dishing out this kind of level of content. How are you not a fan?
I don't know how anyone would not be. I mean, like you said, I love the tone of this. This is like it's a crime thriller with an epic adventure all rolled into one. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. And you know, one of the writers is Michael Walden from Rick and Morty, and you can see that style of comedy come out in certain scenes as well.
And the absurdity of the world that they're in. Very Rick and Morty. Some of their tech, the way they. That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of
very
that.
Cool. And then obviously he's writing Doctor Strange as well. So
it's all coming out and moved on. Yeah. Which probably makes sense because he'd have a good concept of the multiverse. So is this a show where there's a crossover? Do we get a crossover in this show? Do we get, because we're directly dealing with the multiverse, how do we not get, what is Loki in Doctor Strange? Or
we thought we were going to see crossover in WandaVision.
They had planned to do one in WandaVision. That was planned, and they stopped doing it at the last minute. So I wonder if they've done it here. But if I was to say, can you explain the show to somebody? I would say it's like the MCU meets Doctor Who, meets David Lynch, meets Terry Gilliam, meets it's just this soup meets Rick and Morty. And it's this soup of all these influences and all these crazy ideas, and they brewed this. And I think it's just can't wait to keep seeing this every week for the next 5 more episodes.
5 more episodes. Interesting. I thought they were going to do, which is great. I'm glad they didn't. I thought they were going to do like the double first and second episode.
I was a bit concerned because we had pre-booked this show. Probably wouldn't have got it in time. We would have had to do
that was really good. That was, yeah.
Look,
I think it makes sense.
Is it going to win over people who are not MCU fans? I don't think. I think it's really dependent on your love of the MCU. But you cannot deny that this is not just great quality television.
Oh yeah,
and it looks $1 million. I mean, you can't question the scope of this. You know how good it looked. You know, but yeah, wonderful. Great start to the probably the best first episode out of all the MCU shows at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
Best opening. Yeah. The first episode, WandaVision, basically that 50s show, the whole thing's. And the first one, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, is good, but they don't actually meet in that episode. You don't see them get together. This felt like it was
straight away.
We were straight away. We kind of know by the end of this episode what he's going to be up to, where he's going to be going, who the villain is. We kind of got a good concept of where it's going to go. But it's beautifully odd, this show. I think it's fantastic. So, we'll be doing this again next week, of course. We want you guys to be involved, of course. I mean, if you watch it, you've got comments. If there's information that we're not giving out that you'd like us to include, or we've missed something, and we certainly like to know
a comment about
Mobius, like, you know, this version of Mobius and Mobius, because I didn't find a lot on him. So, but yeah, There you go. Besides that, Rick, I had a blast with this one.
I had a blast too, mate. Loved it. Cannot wait until next week. So, looking
Brilliant,
forward to it.
guys. Keep your hats on. Same time next week. Catch up with us for episode 2 of Loki. Also, don't forget, we're doing
Friday.
our retro review where we go back and review old movies. And this one's kind of doesn't feel old, but it's old. And that's Bad Boys.
Bad Boys.
1997's Bad Boys, I think. 95, I think. Maybe 95. So that's how far we're going back. We'll do that on Friday night at 7 p.m. And then obviously next week, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m., episode 2 of Loki. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Next week.